Friday. We got a lot to get to, including ripping and destroying that dirty Joel Embiid, even though clearly they got it right. He shouldn't have been ejected from last night's game. We'll get to that a little bit later on. I'm very happy as a New York Jet fan, and right now Giant fans need to say thank you to Tiki Barber live from Detroit. Because for weeks...
What did I do?
Oh, you know what you did. For weeks... Tiki Barber calmed down the Giant fan who didn't love J.J. McCarthy. He calmed him down. He said, this is a smokescreen. This isn't going to happen. They're not going to draft him. And you were never rattled. Even when J.J. McCarthy the other day said, I've spent more time with the Giants than anybody, you remain steadfast. So come clean. When did Joe Shane tell you he didn't like J.J. McCarthy, Tiki?
Nobody told me nothing. Trust me, I reached out to a lot of people over there and said, hey, what's going on? Tell me, well, you guys are traveling to see all these quarterbacks? This J.J. McCarthy thing? But wait, Dave's in there. Hey, Joe Shane's not there. Is this a smokescreen? I got nothing. But I could just tell from the way that the Giants offseason had crafted itself, how they spent so much time building up the offensive line, how they quietly re-signed Isaiah Hodgins, right? You know, remember they released him and then they brought him back. You could tell that they were trying to build something that could win now. And to me, the only way to do that is by relying on a veteran quarterback that's already on your roster that you believe in, obviously, because you paid him some money, despite the injuries and the inconsistencies. But you just needed to get him better supported. And better support, I mean, offensive line, which they did with Jermaine Illuminor and obviously John Runyon and Stinney. They brought in these guys to shore up that offensive line, maybe get some depth. Perhaps they address that in the second or third rounds today, something that I'll be announcing from Detroit, which I'm excited about. But more importantly, go get some assets, some talent, some studs that'll go make big plays for you and blow games open. And by drafting Malik Nabers at number 6, they did exactly that. His ceiling is probably the highest of all the three receivers here because of how explosive he is. The speed, it's easy, right? He just runs easily away from defenders, and I think he'll be utilized in a great way. You could tell what the premium is on right now for the New York Giants. Going back to Jalen Hyatt from a year ago, Wan'Dale Robinson with his shiftiness, the kid Dante Miller, who they signed in free agency, who missed out on a year because of a denied transfer from Columbia to the University of South Carolina. He's a blazer. Speed is what the Giants are after right now, and they got another one in Malik Nabers.
So you are happy. Giant legend Tiki Barber says, I love the fact they went Malik Nabers in the first round, correct?
I do. Look, I think Roma Dunze, to me, you guys know, you've heard me talk about it for the last 3 days.
That was your guy.
He's my guy because of how he works. And, there was just something intangible and heavy character about him that I loved. He was the safer of all three of these guys. But to me, they got the one with the biggest upside. And you heard Dabes to say it after the draft. I don't know where he said it on, but I just read it. He said, Malik Nabers is a dog.
A dog.
Right? Loogie, you like that. He's a dog.
Dog.
And that's what the Giants need. Think of the last time the Giants have had an offensive player like that, right? That just had that, I'm getting it regardless of what you're trying to do to me, and they got one in Malik Nabers.
So this is the beauty of the NFL draft. The day after, we all sit around and we say, I love this. I hate this. This stinks. When the truth is, none of us have any freaking idea, because the key to all of this is you better be good. Now, I want to tell you how I feel about this, and you tell me if I'm coming at this the right way as an IFO, as an independent football observer. We have had the debate over the last few days in terms of my opinion that they needed to find a quarterback, that they needed to replace Daniel Jones, because Daniel Jones has continuously proven he cannot stay healthy. But I thought what Joe Shane did last night, if I'm choosing to believe the rumors that came out after the fact, and I am, I think what Joe Shane did was right on. He said, I've identified a quarterback I want. That guy was Drake May. Right. I agree with him. My rookie fan assessment is I like Drake May more than I like J.J. McCarthy. Right. They tried, if you believe it, I'm choosing two, they tried to trade up and draft their quarterback. The New England Patriots, to their credit, decided, nah, we're going to stick where we are at 3. So Joe Shane, to me, if you believe that he tried to trade up, and there was all indications that he did, Joe Shane did what I agree with, try to get your guy. Once that didn't happen, And who knows what the price was, or if it was simply the Patriots realizing we're never really serious about trading this pick.
Yeah.
We want to find our franchise quarterback too. Joe Schoen had to make a decision. And that decision is, do I just reach and take a quarterback for the sake of taking a quarterback, or do I not love that quarterback's available and go get the best available player? Again, as a fan, I agree with him. I don't think J.J. McCarthy's any freaking good. I agree with you, Tiki. It was a smokescreen. So you can be me, you can be the Giant fan who wanted a quarterback, and say, hey, I still like what he did because I didn't want that quarterback.
Yeah.
And so that's why Joe Schoen, to me, made the right decision, because I agree with him. To draft a quarterback for the sake of drafting a quarterback is stupid. It's what loser organizations do. And trust me, I'm familiar with loser organizations. So you can say, hey, they still need to find their quarterback. You and I, T, could still have a difference of opinion on Daniel Jones, but we can agree that Joe Schoen last night, at the exact time I predicted, 8:52, made the right decision by drafting the best available player, and on some draft boards, the best wide receiver in the draft, in Malik Nabers.
Yeah, you're right. It was the early going with the draft boards was actually Malik Nabers over Marvin Harrison. Now, part of that is simply because Marvin Harrison didn't do anything in the lead up. He didn't do the combine. He just went and said hello to a few people and then bounced. I don't even think he performed at his pro day. And so Malik Nabers had that edge. Let's not forget, LSU's had some pretty damn good receivers come out of there.
Jamar Chase, Odell Beckham,
Odell Beckham, etc.
Yep.
You know who leads them all in receptions and yards? Malik Nabers, right? So the dude is a baller, and the Giants knew that, and I think he felt I don't want to say he fell to them, but he was right there when the Giants wanted him. And I agree with you on the quarterback. To me, it was Drake May and nobody else. Caleb Williams is a project. He's going to Chicago. Chicago's #1 pick. They've been bad for a lot of years. Right? They can afford to have a project. If it takes them 2 or 3 years, it's okay. Matt Eberflus might survive that. They can afford that. Right? The Giants couldn't. Washington has been abysmal for the last couple of years. They can afford a little bit of a project, even though I think Jaden Daniels is going to be really good down there. The Giants wanted Drake May, and it's the one I would have said go get. They couldn't get him. So you go to plan B. And you know what plan B was? Get one of the best receivers in the draft, which is what I had speculated the entire time.
You were right, but now let's get to the uncomfortable conversation. Joe Schoen showed you last night that he doesn't believe in Daniel Jones.
Not for the future, right? And he has to believe in him for this year.
Okay, now what? And this is
nuance, what I'm saying, but that's the reality of it.
Look, I get you, but I brought this up the other day about the fork in the road. Now, the Giants can still draft a quarterback later today. It's possible that when you go up to that, what do you go up to, the microphone, and you make the pick, the lectern. It's possible you're going to walk up to that lectern today and you're going to say the name Spencer Rattler. That's possible.
Like, is this thing on?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you're going to hear what I'm going to say. The Giants take with the 47th pick of the second round, Spencer Rattler.
Oh, really? So you're against that?
No, I mean, you passed on the quarterback of the future already.
No,
you couldn't get him. You passed on the reach.
Yes.
Right? You passed on the reach because J.J. McCarthy or Michael Penix or Bo Nix, all of whom were taken in the top 12, by the way, were reaches in those spots.
I agree.
The Giants passed on doing that. So I think if you're going to take Spencer Rattler, it's got to be like in the 3rd round or maybe the 4th round if he falls.
I don't think he's going to fall because what we saw last night is that teams are desperate for quarterbacks. That's why we saw. And look, here's the most significant thing. Because there was a chance this pivot that I was going to make towards you after they didn't draft a quarterback was what I warned you. And I know it bothers you and it boils you up inside. I was going to say, okay, you didn't get your future quarterback, but you know as well as I know, even if you don't admit it today, Daniel Jones' days are numbered. So there's going to be a new quarterback for this team soon. Well, and maybe it's a veteran next year, and maybe it's Dak Prescott. But we got a new name to mention now because after what Atlanta pulled last night, maybe the veteran we're talking about a year from now is Kirk Cousins.
I know. I mean, I meant to go look at his numbers, the contract, because they gave him $180 million over 4 years, and a lot of that, like $100 million, is guaranteed. So what the heck are you doing, Atlanta? I mean, I know it kind of feels like a luxury to be able to draft a quarterback there after paying a guy $180 million in contract number, because your roster is filled, right? They have a good offensive line. They have good skilled position players, including Kyle Pitts and Drake London and Bijan Robinson, all of whom have been first-round picks in the last 3 or 4 years. Their defense is actually pretty good, led by Jesse Bates and some other defensive players on that side of the ball. So it was almost like, hey, why not? But when you draft a quarterback in the first round, we've had this conversation about Daniel Jones. When you draft a quarterback in the first round, eventually he has to play. He has to.
Oh, no question.
And so that means that Kirk Cousins, regardless of what they guaranteed him and gave him in contracts, is on the way out.
Exactly.
Whether that's a year from now or 2 years from now or whatever, he's on his way out. And so it kind of lines up. So forget this Dak Prescott nonsense that you keep trying to shove down my throat. In a couple of years or a year, whatever it is, if I'm the New York Giants, my number one free agent target, if the draft is not right, even if because if they could be picking terribly, right? They could be not terribly, but you know what I mean. They could be picking in like the 20s,
right?
Or whatever it is. They can't get their quarterback of the future. Give me Kirk Cousins, dude.
Look,
for real,
dude. I don't disagree with you, and I think that assuming they don't go quarterback tonight with you in the second round, because there's a guy they really love that they knew they didn't have to reach for in the first round. The most likely replacement for Daniel Jones is that veteran option that we talked about the last couple of days.
Right.
And now there's a new name that you can throw in the mix, because I think 2 days ago when I bring this up to you, the two names that seemed obvious are Dak Prescott, as much as that makes you throw up, and Jared Goff, who, based on last night's reception, I don't know if the Detroit Lions would ever move on from him.
Dude, I'm walking around town, in downtown Detroit this afternoon. There are Jared Goff murals and posters all over the walls. They love him. I mean, you get Amon-Ra St. Brown last night at the beginning. I just got one thing to say. Jared Goff. What the heck?
Cheesy as hell, man. Cheesy
as hell. It was so cheesy, but whatever.
But those are the names. Because the truth is, what happened last night, and I commend Joe Schoen. This is nuanced stuff. Joe Schoen announced to the world by his interest in trading up to 3, I know I got to replace Daniel Jones. I know that, but I'm also not going to be desperate. Right. It ain't going to be 4 a.m. at the bar, bro. And I respect that Joe Schoen did that. I respect that Joe Schoen spent a lot of time evaluating these quarterbacks, and he came to the conclusion that there was one particular guy that he wanted. And he tried, and he failed, and he couldn't get him, and he wasn't going to be desperate. So I commend Joe Schoen for how he handled it, but the handwriting is on the wall. Daniel Jones may be the guy this season, but if the inevitable happens, and unfortunately I think it's going to happen with his inability to stay healthy, the New York Giants are looking for a quarterback next year, and it's probably of the veteran persuasion. That's why get used to hearing about Dak Prescott. And now, get used to hearing about Kirk Cousins. Because, Tiki, I did the same thing you did last night, right after Joel Embiid decided, you know what, I'm going to go full dirty.
Right.
I checked out Kirk Cousins' situation financially in Minnesota. And here's the reality. We're all idiots. We didn't realize the Minnesota Vikings can trade him at any point, and it is not a massive cap hit for them. Yep. They can trade him at any time. As far as cutting him is concerned, it's basically a 2-year deal. Basically, that's what it is. And after 2 years, they could save a massive amount of money on their cap, not have a huge cap dead number, and they can move on. Which means, and granted, he'll be 38 at that point, 37 years old, the Minnesota Vikings, not the Minnesota Vikings, the Atlanta Falcons, I'm so used to that, announced to the world that Kirk Cousins, it's a one-night stand.
Yeah,
so he's a new name now to think about, because the Giants are inevitably replacing Daniel Jones. Joe Schoen told the world last night, and I think we're going to get it with a veteran and not with some young project.
Right, and here's the other thing, because I don't want to fully throw Daniel Jones out the door with the dirty water. Daniel Jones this is really his last opportunity. And we've talked about this a couple of times, Evan, how it feels like all the time Daniel Jones is in a prove-it year. Right, prove it for your 5th-year option. Prove it because we didn't give it to you for your contract. You get your contract, now prove that you're worth it. Now you get injured, and now you're coming back. Now prove it before we have to move on from you and either draft someone if we stink enough or bring in a veteran to replace you. This is a prove-it year for Daniel Jones. Again, I mean, it's like the 4th time that it's been a prove-it year for Daniel Jones. And if he comes through, then you know what? the Giants will say, we paid him correctly. And having faith in him was worth it. And especially now that they feel more complete around him, that could happen. Now, I know people aren't going to be optimistic about that, but I'm just telling you, the reality is Daniel Jones, when healthy and when executing effectively because the offensive line and skill position players are there for him, he can be a good quarterback. So I'm not going to rule out that Daniel Jones could evolve into or continue to become that guy that the Giants want. But you're right. The writing is there. Like, prove it or we're moving on.
What I would love to know, because here's where we differed on yesterday, and Sean was on my side on this. I would have, if I believe in a quarterback, and I got the impression Joe Shane did with Drake May, I'd move heaven and hell to go get him. Like, I would give up whatever it takes. Were the New England Patriots fotzing around here for the last few weeks and basically lying to us and blowing smoke up our ass that they were ever interested in trading back?
I think they wanted to get the world. Like, they wanted to get the one swap, the number one pick swap,
right?
Probably a future number one as well. Because you're talking about the third pick, man, right? And so I think they overplayed it, but they knew in their heart of hearts, we also still need a quarterback.
Yeah.
Right? And so we have one of the best options available in the next 2 or 3 years with Drake May. Let's just take him.
Look, I know this because I watch these things as I morph between the IFO and the fan in me. And the fan in me is obviously a diehard Jet fan who hates the New England Patriots. I wanted the Patriots to trade back because I thought it was stupid. I really did, because they need a franchise quarterback. And look, in my opinion, and who the hell am I? Who the hell is any of us? Even as scouts, who the hell are they? We get it wrong every freaking year. Every year we think we know, we have no idea. I think I know Drake May has a chance to be really good. So my hope was the Patriots would be dumb enough to miss out on that opportunity and trade back. Now, I don't know if they were ever serious about it, but clearly the Giants tried to do it. And I think what would give me confidence if I'm a Giant fan this afternoon is that I have an organization that said, I'm not going to be desperate. I know I need a quarterback, but I'm not just going to draft one because I know I need one. I can only draft one I believe in, because once you draft in somebody, a young quarterback, you're like marrying them for 3 years, and it sucks, man. You have to live through all the bad. You've got to figure it out. You got to make excuses, and in some cases, your job is tied to it. Why would you ever tie yourself to a guy you don't believe in? And that's why, even though I was take a quarterback guy, Tiki, I was take the right quarterback guy and not settling for whoever's there.
Hold on, let me bring this back to the conversation we had the other day. You remember the speed dating thing we were talking about?
Yes.
This is speed dating, landing the date, and then marrying her immediately. Right?
Yes.
That's what it is. And sometimes that works out. A lot of times it does not at all. And you're stuck, and there's nothing you can do.
We will come back and get to your calls. We'll hear what the Giant fans who work with us have to say about this as well. 877-337-6666. Plus, as a Jet fan, I got exactly what I wanted. And the Jet fans crying about it have no idea. We'll get to that. And Joel Embiid, a man I have a very deep personal issue with, but a man who did not deserve to be ejected from last night's game. And my reasoning cannot be argued. We'll get to it coming up live from...